Well, hey, it's Luskos.
And it is a beautiful day.
I was worried it was going to have to be Hey, it's the Lusko.
Oh, I know.
With what the smoke did to your beautiful voice.
The smoke has done bad things to me.
So in Montana, we're dealing with the ash and smoke from the Washington, Oregon, California fires. And of course, our prayers are going out to all those in those affected areas. There's been lives lost, homes lost, people displaced. And so we're praying and thinking that we hope rain comes to all these areas and these fires get put out and that all of you in those areas would be safe.
Yes.
But we're also just dealing with smoke. I guess it's good to not have to have fires, but just have smoke.
Yes. And I'm so thankful that we're not dealing with the heartache that so many people are. And I'm not saying that what I'm dealing with
it's hard to complain when you put it in perspective, but it does suck because it is so smoky.
Well, and just thinking about what we're breathing in. And obviously we're not outside much, but we're breathing in. And obviously we've been seeing pictures of what everyone in those states are doing.
Well, I'm a walker by nature. That's my way to reconnect with God every day. And it's just the walks. I come in hacking up like a chimney.
Yeah. But it just headaches and
allergies.
Sore throat and
what's real weird is all the COVID symptoms that you don't want. Everyone's got now. I've got a dry cough. Everyone's like, it's the smoke. It's the smoke.
Well, recently I took Lennox for his checkup at the doctor's, and they do the whole screening and do you have cough and sore throat? I'm like, yes, I do, but I think it's not that. I think it's because of the smoke. And so anyways, it was fine. But
Jennie's voice has gone
my voice
with the
is
way
more
of the
deep.
It's good.
Normal.
I like it. But we're pushed through. I'm grateful you pushed through. Here you are, and this is a very special Hey, it's Luskos episode because we were able to sit down and have a conversation. And I had to do a lot of the legwork because Jennie was sort of a little more sitting back with that
and
one.
Coughing. Sorry for my coughing.
Coughing, yes. But we had the privilege of having a conversation with some of our dear friends who are being used by God in powerful ways. Brooke and Scott Ligertwood.
Yes.
Incredible people. Gosh, Grammy award-winning singer-songwriters, worship leaders. Brooke has had her own storied career as Brooke Frazier, and now she leads Hillsong Worship. And Scott and Brooke have just released their first book. We talk a lot about that. It's a children's book. You'll hear us going into the backstory and the art. For those of you who are interested in process and Apple pencils, you will love it.
It's a beautiful conversation, and hopefully you feel like you're a part and that you're at the dinner table with us. We love time spent with these two, and we hope that you enjoy this conversation with Brooke and Scott Ligertwood.
We cannot overstate how much we hope their spirit rubs off on yours as it has on us, because they're just the way they see life is precious. So enjoy this conversation. First of all, this is the first time we've seen your faces in months.
No.
Apart from on Instagram.
Isn't it weird? I feel like usually we don't even have to plan to run into each other or be in the same place at the time. It just happens. So you kind of see people through the year so this has been weird.
It's so true.
I also think this is the first New Zealand accent on Hey, it's the Luskos podcast.
What? What a privilege.
Kind of a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Who was your first Aussie accent?
Your inaugural Kiwi.
I can't remember.
I don't think we have.
I don't think we've had an Australian accent.
We've had South African.
We've had South African and just, all sorts of American dialects.
in which there are many.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that I think of how you guys speak English as an accent, but you think of how we speak of as no one thinks they have an accent.
Yeah.
I was on a podcast 2 days ago and we had this exact same conversation, and they were like, because it was Dave Barnes, and he was saying, have you guys noticed that, yes, you guys speak in Australian accents, but most people sing in American accents?
Mm.
And I was like, that is very, very true.
Yeah, you drop the accent when you sing most songs.
Sometimes you can detect it, but for the most part,
certain words it sneaks through.
Very camouflage.
Yeah.
I feel like British, really strong British accents don't still have it. You listen to Adele and you're like, oh yeah, she still has that strong British accent.
True.
Yeah, particularly in the R or the the sound.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It sneaks in.
But I still wouldn't like roll
guys,
my R's though. Like I'm not savior, you know.
Yeah.
Savior.
This is the type of gold you guys could expect from us, by the way.
No, this is what we're here for. This is what we're here for. This is the reason this podcast exists, is for this moment right now.
Okay, the surprise of my life was that Sheila Walsh is
You keep getting so
Irish.
surprised by that, but she's so obviously Irish.
No. I had never heard her speak before.
I
So
see.
we sat down.
Scottish?
She's Irish.
Maybe Scottish?
No, I
Irish.
think she's Irish.
I think she's Irish.
Have you Googled Sheila Walsh?
Should we
We
Google?
did an interview with her, and Jennie was like, "What?
No, I sat
What?
down.
You're so Irish."
First of all, I was like, we were seeing each other because normally with podcasts, you don't really see each other. So I was like, oh, Sheila Walsh, that's awesome. And then she started to talk. And I was like, I guess I've
Where
never
did you
heard
think
her
she was
speak
from?
before. I thought she was American. But I was just so shocked. And I still am.
Shocker!
She is Scottish. I can confirm.
You found she's Scottish.
Thank
Okay.
you.
But so wait, but I didn't know. It says here that she was a vocalist and a songwriter. I didn't know that.
Oh.
She's full of mystery and surprises.
Wow,
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Never trust Wikipedia though. Never trust. That's what I've learned. Never ever trust it.
So we don't actually know for sure she's Scottish.
Okay.
That's-
We don't know for sure. She could in
and
fact
she's been
be Irish.
falsely accused of being Irish already in this conversation.
Yeah, I know.
I'll say this though. I know that you guys are not Irish, but I love you guys so much. We both love you. You're some of our most highly favored people in our hearts
Yes.
and treasured.
That's
and
so true.
whenever you guys come to mind, it's with a smile. And that's how we think of you and your impact on us and on the world. And I just wish we were in a little boat putting around Newport Harbor with you right now with our kids almost falling in, but
We had dinner last night, and one of the topics that came up, I remember looking to Brooke and go, you know, one thing I'm really happy about is like our extended friends. Like we were talking about people like you and guys like the Wilkinsons and the guys like the Madus and you know those kind of guys.
Yeah, grateful.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Giglios, which we all love.
they're good people. There are
Pretty
some good ones out there. How you guys doing?
We're good.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Next conversation.
No, we're busy. I would say we're busy.
Yeah, this week is what we've been referring to as Mega Week. It's been on the horizon for a few weeks.
We're going to get to that. I was going to grab it. Oh, because of the release of this beautiful book. You get it? Beautiful book. What a beautiful name. You guys just yesterday, as we're recording this, Tuesday, released your first children's book ever.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal.
It is
Hopefully
a big
the
deal.
last.
But the funny
It's the last.
I know, right?
You're speaking right after Jennie's heart. She's like, I wrote a
funny
book
thing
and we'll never do that again.
about Mega Week, though, is that is only one of the 25 things that I feel like are at that level of urgency, right?
Oh my gosh. You
It's
guys.
hilarious. It's hilarious. But it's great. But that is one of the things, and it is a very exciting thing. And
Yeah.
I say it's my last book, children's book, which it definitely is. But I think Scott's got more in him. That's what I'm going to
We'll
go
see.
ahead and say.
Yeah, we've got to talk about that because Scott, you not only co-wrote it, and there was 4 of you that were involved in this. Obviously, all 4 of you who worked on the song or the song with Brooke was you and Ben primarily.
Ben and I.
Okay, but the 4 of you, including your spouses, all worked on the concept of the book, and then but then you also did all the illustrations for it, Scott.
Yeah, which was cool. Well, the thing is about this project that has been different to a lot of projects is this is as close to a passion project as you're ever going to get. Like, we were like, all right, so who should write the book? I was like, well, why don't we just kind of all do it over text and email and things like that, which from a creative process point of view, we could have thought through better, especially
If you wanted all friendships to remain intact on the back end.
you wanted communication to be succinct. It definitely was not. And I remember at one point we had there's about 6 or 7 different versions. And I literally, like when the book went to print, I was like, so which story did we end up? Which one? What was the final draft?
I mean, we should have, basically the takeaway was we should have talked to the Luskos because you guys are, especially you, Levi, very experienced authors at this point, so have been through the process many times. I kind of just, took all my my music knowledge and assumed that like the publisher performs the same function as a label and all of the stuff. So I had all of these assumptions, which turned out to be completely incorrect.
Incorrect.
And the publishers, I'm sure this has happened to you before as well. There's like staff turnover. So you're talking to someone who's doing the print things and another person who's doing editing, and then they move to another company, and then da-da-da. So there was...
So it was definitely a very lively process, but it was really fun because it was with the Fieldings, and that's why it was so good, because we all let's just do everything. Like, let's just do everything in the book and let's make it for our kids. If our kids love it, then we're great. That's going to be the filter.
But I think that's what's probably so good about this book, because we sat down, and obviously we had read it, ourselves, but then we sat down before bed last night with all of our kids and we read it to them. And we have a lot of experience reading books to kids. 14 years, Jennie and I have been reading nighttime stories and bedtime stories and daytime stories, and they were transfixed from beginning to end.
Oh, that's nice.
Their attention, their interest, their things that were funny, little quirky things. And from beginning, then so it's on that level, it's a great kids book.
Yeah.
On par with anything what we would read to our kids again and again and again. But then you have the dimension of this is communicating gospel in an interesting way, in a beautiful way that's lifting and exalting the mom and dad's heart in a way that Dr. Seuss isn't necessarily going to, or that, and then it's teaching things, and I love it's provoking curiosity for nature and all these things. So I just cannot stress enough how I want every parent listening to this, get this book, buy it for friends, buy it for parents, who don't have Jesus in their heart, in their life, in their home. What an incredible, winsome way to bring the gospel to kids, and parents inadvertently, accidentally telling the gospel story even as they're reading this to their kids, because every parent is sick of the 12 books they have and have read them all. If I read that, like, you're hiding a book, like, please don't ask for that again. It might kill me.
It's If You Give a Pig a Party. It's Lennox's favorite book, and he actually has memorized it.
Yeah, which is good.
But it's good.
It's good. He's learning. He's craving the story. But this is I love that you guys did this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your support.
And it's funny because it wouldn't be something that we would necessarily choose to have done for ourselves. Like, it wasn't like this is like a ministry step or something. Basically, somebody gave us this book for kids, and it's of a pop song, right? Not a vulgar pop song, a pop song that we all know, and every kid has sung it in the car at some point because it's attached to a movie. But the only reason I won't mention what it is just because I don't want to say that what we produced is better, because this was fine. It's just a pop song. And so this famous artist did a children's book, and it was just a lyric book around this song. And so in the book, it has these pictures of kids, and they're, blowing bubbles and, playing and things like that. And it's great, but it's literally just the lyrics of the song. And so I was reading this to my daughter Dylan about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when she was young. And I remember it was late at night, and we read like everybody else. We read a book, we pray, we do Bible reading as well, and our bedtime routine.
It wasn't too late. It was probably about 6:40. She goes to bed at 7.
My wife loves to fact check my stories, so this
Enneagram 1,
which I love. But
I was just looking in case people think we could like rage with our kids. Like,
so it was 2 a.m. and we're just getting started for our bedtime routine.
We do. We actually do.
There are nights like that. We started Mulan last night, like at 9:30, so it was going to be a late one from the beginning. We were doomed.
Yeah, it's all relative, right?
Did you like it?
Especially when you travel with kids.
Okay. I liked it. I didn't make it to the end. The kids made it to the end. I put myself to bed at like just before 11. But
you guys are gonna love it.
It's fantastic.
Oh, good.
It's very different from the cartoon, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of gathered that from the trailer. But did you know it was shot in my home country, New Zealand?
No, it was not. Is that right?
Yep, New Zealand.
Didn't see that coming.
Wow.
I did not see that coming. No, it was great. It was the kids were like kind of offended when they saw the preview and realized there was no Mushu. I'm like, if Eddie Murphy's not in this movie, I want no part in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a tough loss.
It's a tough loss.
Anyway, sorry, back to the story. What I was saying is that I was sitting in bed and
6:40 p.m.
At 6:40 p.m.
6:40 Pacific.
9-year-old daughter, and
What were you wearing? I need the visual.
I was still wearing my work clothes from the day, which probably jeans and a t-shirt. I'm comfortable, but she was in her pajamas, a onesie with a full zip up the front.
Still our daughter, not me. But that would have been great too.
Zip up the front.
And then I remember
Can you just get
there.
the zip for me, Scotty? I'm so sorry. I'm stopping.
Like the miner's long underwear with buttons on the back that you can open up, the little hatch.
Oh, man.
And then I'm sitting in our reading chair because we have a reading chair. And I remember thinking, I'm going through this story and I remember thinking to myself, I was like, why do we have this for, like, I'm literally teaching my kid the words to this pop song. And it's not a bad song. Like, as I said, it's got no cuss words or anything like that.
Just benign.
Yeah, it's just like, it's nothing. Like, and she knows the words to the song. And I'm like, why don't we have this for our songs? Why don't we teach like kids the words to our songs? Because a lot of the times they're listening to the music or because of production. And I remember I sat with it for a little while and I was like, well, I don't know what to do with an idea like that, because I tend to have those ideas a million times a day and I just stick them in a journal and forget about them.
Because you are an architect of all things that are out there.
Well, I just like to always like that kind of like in chalk draw an open door and be like, oh, we can walk through that one day, you know. And if we never do, then that's fine. It was just fun drawing the door. And then I remember probably a couple of weeks went by and I just said, because it was part of our 12 books, like you said, was this one book. And then I remember saying to Brooke, I was like, we should do stuff, like our church should do something like this for our songs, some of our wider reaching songs, because the kids know this. And then we started actually talking about, I think, and I might not be remembering this completely, but I remember we were having some sort of conversation, then not about the book, but then about our songs, about, especially so if you take the words of this song and it's such a wide reaching song, and then you get to a bridge and it goes, death could not hold you. And we as adults think that that's such an easy concept. Yeah, of course, like death could not hold him. Like we worship the risen Christ. Like, oh yes. But the kids know the words, but they actually have no idea what the words mean. And so I remember those conversations started to throw around. And then we're with Ben and Carolee in New York. What were we doing in New York? Something.
The Grammys.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
No casual. Deal. Oh, just that? just that? You weren't there to eat it. You weren't there to eat at Subway? Just a Grammy? It didn't
leave a great impression on his mind. It clearly was very unmemorable.
I love this. What were we there for? We were getting that. What was that heavy thing they handed us for that song? It was the Grammy.
Scotty, it's just a Tuesday.
Just a Tuesday. Wow.
Oh, so
that's funny.
I didn't know if he was serious when he asked me. He was like, "What were we in New York promote?"
Yeah, the Grammys
thing. When we were all together, that's why we were all in New York.
And I feel like you were really dressed up. Can't recall.
Well, that's perfect. I'm so glad I actually just pieced that together now, because obviously now the song, now it makes the story even more poignant, because I'm like, okay, well, obviously we're probably celebrating what God has done through the song.
Wow.
And then I brought up this, we were sitting, and I just remember it was like we were in a cafe or a restaurant or something, maybe at the bottom of a hotel. And then I brought up to the four of us, so I was like, hey, would you guys be interested in doing like a little passion project? I was like, what if we did a children's book around the song? And I think Ben and Carolee, because Carolee's a writer.
Yeah, Carolee's an amazing writer. So her eyes lit up. Yeah.
So her eyes lit up and she's like, we're in. And we're like, all right, well, let's just, right then and there, we're like, all right, everything's just shared. We're just going to do everything on the book. Everything that we're supposed to do.
Yeah. And then it happened. It's kind of been a journey, and now we're finally holding it in our hands after all of those months. And
well, backing up a little bit, let's talk about this song. When did you guys write what a beautiful name? Everyone's heard it. Everyone's had their heart lifted and ugly cried through it.
Yes.
But just for those who maybe haven't heard the story, how did the song come about?
Yeah, so we wrote that. Ben and I wrote it I believe it was 2016. It would have had to be 2016 because it came out in 2016 in October. And I remember we wrote it just and funnily enough, Scott, because Scott's a songwriter as well for our church, has written many, many songs for our church. And he was actually writing with Ben Hastings in another cubicle
of like our, it's a good
of kind of one of our church buildings down in Sydney. And so Ben and I were writing, Scott was writing with Ben Hastings in another room. And Ben came in the room and he had just that verse melody, which is so beautiful. And I loved it. Immediately we started working on it, and we finished kind of the bulk of at least the melody sections and what it was about, and the beautiful, wonderful, powerful kind of progression of the chorus. We finished that all in one day. And I remember we had two bridges we were umming and ahhing about. And so we asked Ben Hastings.
They came knocking on our door, which we were writing a song that I can't remember the song, by the way, but I remember just going, I'm quite into this idea that we're working on, me and Ben Hastings, who wrote, for everyone who knows, he wrote stuff like So Will I, and a couple
which
of small...
also needs to be a book, by the way.
Yes.
I've talked about that.
And Oceans. I feel
like So Will I, I love Oceans, by the way, obviously, like ideas of like what we could do from a journey on the water, but So Will I piques my interest just because I love creation.
It's so much science, which this one has that feel to it. It launches off from the moon at the beginning.
And so I just remember working on this idea, and then they, politely knocked the door and they're like, so sorry, can we just show you an idea? Because we're umming and ahhing between like kind of two sections. So we're like, all right. And I just remember leaving the room going, I actually really like this idea that me and Ben are working on. Anyway, so we go where Ben Fielding and Brooke to their room, and then they start playing this song. What a beautiful name to us. And they get all the way through, and Brooke preface before she plays us the song, she's like, I'll show you bridge A. So I just play it all the way through, show you bridge A, and then see what you think. And then we'll go back, I'll play it all the way through and show you bridge B. And so they play this song, the song that we all know now. And they play it all the way through and they get to this bridge, which anyone who's heard the song is like, every time you get to the bridge, you're like, okay, here we go. We're going to go somewhere.
All Hillsong songs also.
Yes.
It's like you guys is like upper hook.
Yeah. It's like, so they play this bridge in its entirety, death could not hold you, the bell toll before you, blah, blah, blah. And it goes. And I remember Ben and I, like Hastings, like every so often, like catching each other's eyes. And, with song, when you work together so like, you're communicating so much between just that look. And then we'd look down, and they got to the end of the song. And I can't remember what it was, Ben or I. There was a pause, and then Ben was like, one of us, I just remember so clearly, one of us saying, we don't care what your bridge B is. Bridge A is the one that you're going to use.
Don't bring anything else. Stop now.
We never heard bridge B. Then I remember we walked out of that room though, and we walked back into our room. It would have been like, 1:00 in the afternoon, walking back into our, room where we were working on another idea, which I liked before leaving that room. And I remember I closed the door and I said to Ben, I don't know if what we're writing in this room right now is good or not. I just know it's not that. And then he was like, I am so depressed. You want to go get lunch? I'm like, yep, let's go get lunch. And like, we literally just stopped writing whatever we were, because we just knew. I was like, Ben and Brooke, they have it. They're good. They have it. We're good. We can go.
That is
so to this day, have you still not heard?
Not Bridge B, and I cannot remember the song that me and Ben Hastings were writing.
Whatever you wrote, it's trash. This is where we're at. Stop right there. Take yes for an answer.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
That's funny. Okay, so from your perspective then, Brooke, because now we know what Scott was working on that the world will never hear.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think God obviously has a history of using like really ordinary people. Yes. He prefers it that way, I think. And I think that there's sometimes, that Ben Fielding and myself have both been writing songs for many years. So there's craft, and there's diligence, and there's prayerful labor, and there's the tools of songwriting and all of these other things. But then God just breathes on something when He wants to breathe on it. You know what I mean? You can't manufacture and hustle God into anointing something. And
wow.
He's just going to anoint what He's going to anoint. And honestly, I couldn't have picked that it would have been that song. And even I remember when we introduced it at church for the first time, actually it was kind of almost like our overflow service. We have our main service at Hills in Sydney in the big kind of in the larger room, and then we have a little thing we call the hub, which is like almost like an overflow service.
Yeah,
kind
the
of
song
scenario.
made the overflow service.
And so we were leading at the almost like the B service, do you know what I mean, for the weekend. And I remember I led that, and we never, I think we set it up as song 2 or something. So we did a song, welcome everyone to church, and then and we never got to the other songs in the set. The church just wanted to
stayed there.
I just wanted to keep singing that. And
Wow.
that was a real encouragement, but it's a bit old fashioned, like singing What a Wonderful Name. And we were like, oh yeah, okay. We just want it to serve. So whatever, like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But then, yeah, like I said, God just breathes on what He's going to breathe on. And I just feel, humbled to be any kind of part of it, honestly. And just, God doesn't have to trust me with any songs. So, let alone a good one. So I'm grateful. Yeah.
Grateful to be in the room. And that's what's so remarkable about you guys' spirits, that you, Scott, don't remember that you were at the Grammys, that most people, that all they would remember about their life, and that you, Brooke, have written these songs, but you have such a sense of like trembling that you've been handed something not your own, and that you believe you can't force God into anointing you. I mean, that's so precious.
I've always loved, in the Psalm where it says, if I forget Jerusalem, may my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth. And it's something that I've prayed since I was a teenager. God, if I ever forget you, may my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth. May I not be able to speak any longer. So I still pray that if I forget him, may my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth. And so you'll know clearly if I've forgotten him, because
You'll be like Zacharias coming out of the temple. Like, what's his name going to be?
You forgot God.
Yeah.
You forgot who it's about.
Brooke.
No, it's so good.
But I think there's a lot of people listening maybe who are aspiring worship leaders or songwriters or whatever. They think they have a book in them. And I think there's a lot of people who want that success more than they want just to walk with Jesus and be faithful. And I think that you guys have lived a life that shows that you just to be found worthy, just to walk with Jesus and then letting God take care of the rest.
Yeah, I mean, you said God loves to use ordinary people, and that's so true, but he also uses ordinary people whose hearts are surrendered to him and who are devoted to him and who whose hearts are upright towards him. And so you guys are just such beautiful examples of that. I mean, even the fact that in the book you talk about being in church and the kids listening to this song.
That was a great little
church.
line.
And it was so precious because it was so your heart of the local church. And it was your heart of, yeah, of course, it's a given. Like, these kids are in church and they're listening to this song and they know this song and they're in the house of God. And that's so beautiful. And that's not necessarily a common thing for people. But to assume that and to kind of like, this is how we love God. We show up, we keep showing up, and we love God's house and we love God's people. And that even right there was just such a precious truth.
You may not even realize you did that.
That comes out of who you are.
That was very deliberate.
Yeah.
That was very deliberate. There was two things that were deliberate about, and for any of the adults who are listening, I won't spoil this book for you, but the main character and his little friend goes on.
Who has great hair, by the way.
Yeah, great hair. He's modeled off Ben and Carolee's son. So if you go to the Instagram, the book account Instagram, and you have a look at Leo, their son, you're like, oh my goodness, like they are,
My daughter Olivia, who's 14, she goes, I love his hair. It's my favorite part. I just loved seeing all the different orientations of it.
But anyway, there was two things that we wanted to do, because obviously the main character is on a search for he hears his mum singing the song and the preface of the journey or the narrative of the song, the book. Hears his mum in the other room singing this song. He's like, I know that song, but what's the name? It's a beautiful, but what's the name? And so that it's out on a quest. And I just remember when we were trying to figure out and plot the story, that there was two things we wanted to come back to. One is when you're searching for the name of Jesus, one is church and the other is the Bible. And we're like, so yes, let's go on this incredible, wondrous adventure. But there's going to be two anchor points in this story.
Awesome. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it does have a where the wild things are trajectory, but it's grounded by those anchors, and that's awesome. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the illustrations, because Scott, it's beautifully drawn.
Yes.
I remember the day you picked me and Clover up on the end of the peninsula on our bicycle that was making too much noise. It was so rusty, and you picked us up in your truck.
I remember putting the bike in the back of the truck. And
when we opened the back door, it's like literally you couldn't put anything anywhere because there were so many children's books. You were just looking, and like I remember you had done. I was like, what in the heck is going on here? And you're like, I'm doing research. I'm writing a kid's book, and you showed us some of the illustrations in your iPad, because you did all these on an iPad, right?
Yeah, well, I did some. Yes, I did a lot of it. I ended up doing a lot of it digitally because I'd never illustrated a book before, and I realized it's so different than drawing. And because the book went through so many iterations, it was the easiest way to do it. So for anyone who knows, like illustrations come so far technologically, because you can write with a pen, so you can have different. It's exactly like drawing with a pencil, almost.
What app were you using for the geeks who are like, I want to know?
Oh, it's the greatest app that has been for a creative that has been released in years. It's called Procreate, and Procreate I think the app is $17. As opposed to if you get the Adobe suite, it's like thousands of dollars or something like that. But this is $17, and it is such a good tool. And so I did this because we actually wrote and illustrated this book, and there was about 4 different iterations of the book. And
the biggest changes were just story arc, or what?
No, actually both. Like, we were just trying to figure out what we want to do. And what was really great about doing a passion project is that we really felt no pressure to have to. Like, nobody was telling us it has to be this. I mean, there was suggestions from outside, but we were just like, we're going to make the book that we want. And so what's interesting about these illustrations is actually they're really simplified to where I started out. I actually started out with a lot more intricate illustrations, but my kids just weren't into them.
Interesting.
Wow.
So I actually look at this, and I know this sounds funny, but like I find I'm really happy where the book ended up visually, but I wrote this almost objectively through my kids' eyes. Oh, sorry, I drew it almost objectively through my kids' eyes. If they loved it and if it was simple enough. So I ended up taking so much stuff out, and I ended up focusing on color and like negative space, or like making something really identifiable, because I realized when I drew something too nuanced, the kids wouldn't pick up. Like I might have impressed adults, but I wasn't impressing kids. And
he killed so many pages that I loved. I was like, no.
Yeah, and I was like, and I would say that some stuff that I feel like from a critic's point of view would be like, that's way better drawn, and I would agree. But I put something in because it caught my kids' attention and they loved it.
Stephen King talks about in writing the idea of killing your darlings, being willing to stuff you. And I'd imagine, Brooke, there's a lot of, and Scott, both parallels to songwriting. Yes. I loved that. That would kill, in a musical sense, but it's not the one that the average mom's going to whistle singing while she does the dishes.
Exactly. When it comes to melody or something, if you write melody with and the range is too high, we always talk about Pete the plumber. Pete the plumber can't sing the song. Yes, it sounds amazing when you sing it, but like not that Tay does this. I'm saying when somebody who has a crazy range can sing it, but if Pete the plumber can't use it in his own life, and we took the same approach with the book.
Yeah, and it's really sweet because now even we were looking at it the other day with the kids again, and Dylan, our daughter who's 4, about to turn 5, she was like, "Daddy, I remember when you drew this." Like the book is, and him drawing. He would disappear for hours at a time, in our home, be in a room like drawing for hours at a time. Days on end, literally for 2 years. And so it's so sweet that our girls now have the memories, like they've kind of literally grown up with him. They're like, "Where's Daddy?" I'm like, "Oh, he's drawing the book for you. He's drawing a book." And they have these memories of those drawings kind of and these illustrations coming to life, which is really special. And Dylan, yesterday when it came out, was so excited that now all the other kids, she said, "Mummy, it's so cool that all the other kids will get our book today." Like she real personal stake in this. Totally. So it's really sweet.
So anyone who's seen any of my other work might look at this and go, actually, he has taken a lot out of it. Like I honestly wanted to make it for kids. I wanted kids to be like, I love these illustrations. And, anyone who's seen, you can get Japanese anime cartoons and then you can get Peppa Pig. And guess what everyone likes? Peppa Pig.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, everyone. Yeah, I think about that. What is it?
But you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
One of my favorite quotes, I think it's by that Saint Exupery. He said, "Perfection is attained not when there's nothing else that can be added, but when there's nothing else that can be taken away."
Oh yeah, I like that.
Kind of minimalism. And I think a sermon's that way too. So many pastors pack sermons full to the, it's like, we didn't need to know that. You just trying to show off that big word you found in your big old dictionary. Where it's like, what may have actually helped someone is just that simple concept. Jesus spoke to where the common people could hear him gladly. So I think that's something we should all strive for.
Yeah. And I wanted something that held the attention of the kid all the way through, because obviously where it ends up with revealing the name of Jesus is where you want to land as a parent, because then that inspires the rest of bedtime. The conversations there.
Beautiful.
Okay, well, above and beyond just writing kids' books, you guys have day jobs, just kind of running Hillsong Worship, just that.
Well, and the fact that this was one of 25 things that are of equal importance.
Give us the highlights of this week, Brooke. What is Mega Week?
Well, I don't know what you are prepared to disclose on.
Well, it's the Luskos and
just the Luskos and no one else. Don't worry about anybody else.
We're at dinner.
We're laughing till we cry over appetizers, and the entree hasn't even been served yet.
Okay.
Yeah, you can say that.
So obviously the book came out yesterday. Our eldest daughter is turning 5 and starting school, so we had Meet the Teacher morning.
And first days.
Is she there every day, or is it a couple
It'll
days
be
a week?
every day. So she had just had Meet the Teacher day. Her first day of school is tomorrow. Then the next day is Friday. We bought a house, which we just picked up the keys for right after Meet the Teacher.
Yep.
And then on Friday, I'm handing in our new Hillsong Worship album. So I'm in between that. So I ran into this podcast from, we're editing over there furiously, manipulating waveforms and stuff. So, and then the late night mix sessions with Sydney time zone. So,
and then there's 2 other projects that we're trying to work on as well. So like it's all kind of.
So it's all, but
it is a mega week.
You guys.
It's Mega Week. And it's on our calendar as Mega Week.
Yeah. But we made time last night. We made time. We carved out a few hours. We went out to dinner. and we sat by the water and looked into each other's eyes
and talked about our friends
and talked about our friends and celebrated God's goodness. I think that was important for us to do. Otherwise we would have just not breezed through the week, but kind of it would have been a rush of to-dos. But we really took that time to sit in the gratitude for a couple of hours, which I think God's been
so important because it's so easy, especially as driven as you guys are, the next project, the next thing, the next song, to not do that. And you only get to release your first book once. You only get to be here at this the buying the home, all the things. You'll never be back to kindergarten.
That is such good wisdom, sitting in gratitude. I think that's a word for all of us in the busyness, in the craziness, in the mega weeks, like to sit in gratitude and take a moment. I think that's so helpful. That's helpful for us, but helpful for all of those listening, just to sit in it and enjoy and celebrate. And then get up and do the crazy thing.
And then on to the next thing. Yeah.
And I wonder if that's how, this might be a too graphic a use of the word, but I wonder if that's how we consummate grace, is with gratitude. How we seal that and receive that is by giving back thanks,
Because it's all a grace.
Yeah.
Everything we do it's all a grace. What's interesting though is, and just for anyone who's listening, is that this hasn't been our year. Like our years aren't full with it hasn't been 26 mega weeks in a row.
Yeah.
That's why we call it Mega Week. It's because we've also experienced what everyone else has been experiencing with a lot of, we were quarantined like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
We have had lots of family time like everybody else.
And less flying like everybody else.
Like everybody else. So Mega Week.
First summer without a Hillsong conference. And
normally we would be in Australia 4 or 5 times a year.
Yeah, we would be getting ready to go again right now. For the third.
Yeah.
And were you guys able to write, did a lot of songs come out of that time?
Well, actually, no.
Yeah.
I can be really honest.
No.
You know what I found that this time has been amazing for? And I remember even Joel Houston, his office is right behind that wall next to mine, but he was talking about how, for years, him and his dad were talking about, imagine if services could just pause for a little while so we could kind of dig into, some of the infrastructure stuff. And I think on a huge scale, that's happened certainly in our lives and in our church. But I guess, if I come from the perspective of Hillsong Worship, we were supposed to be on tour and doing all of these other things. And the blessing of that being postponed has meant there has been time to really dig into the roots of what we're doing. And it sounds very boring, but it's like systems and structures and all of these things that actually are so essential because, if there's not reformation and revival happening in administration and systems, that's the stuff that's then going to carry the reformation and revival that everybody can see. And that to be able to carry through that process of bringing the gospel, of discipling people, of seeing the grace of God move in people's lives. But if we don't have the structure to be able to walk through that process with people on many different levels, then we're gonna trip up eventually. So it's been a blessing to be able to dig into that stuff, which is unsexy and unglamorous and looks like a lot of Zooms.
Well, the same thing that's true of a business, a church, a life is true. What you're saying, that sometimes we're so busy working on the organization, in the organization, we don't work on it. We're so busy working in our lives, we don't work on them. It's like going down the freeway, you can't change the oil. You can't change the timing belt. So it's like almost like we have to get pulled into harbors for these sorts of things. And that if we're missing that chance, then we're missing a great gift and what God wants to do in the future.
Amen.
The other thing that needs to be said, though, is one, Brooke does have very good songs in the pipeline. So let's just put that. She's very humble. Yeah. Yes.
What I was going to say, but this new Hillsong Worship project, that had to have been written in the last 7 months, though, right?
Together in the last few months.
Perhaps not.
Perhaps not. That's very mysterious and coy of you.
It's come together in the last few months, but the nature of the project shall be unveiled when I'm allowed to talk about it. I don't know.
Is the release date public yet?
No, we're not talking. It's like literally it's kind of, I think it's supposed to be a surprise actually. So I'm just ruining it.
Well, no, you're not ruining anything. I'm just saying everybody knows a new Hillsong Worship record has to come out some point this year. So it's assumed.
Yeah.
You just sort of like confirmed the assumption is all you've done. You haven't made any announcement, but the world and myself and Jennie, we're also excited and eager about that.
I mean, it's exciting because it's what it is a reflection of what our church has been in this season. So it's actually a project that's from all three of our brands. So Hillsong Worship, Hillsong United, Hillsong Young and Free. It's made across 3 continents. in COVID circumstances. And I don't know what else I can say about it, but
that's exciting. It's like a Frankenstein. That's amazing.
But it's cohesive, and it's what our churches look like in the season. We all haven't been able to be together in conferences or big services, and so my big thing this season has been like nobody. People have been like, "Do you miss worship leading?" I'm like, I never stop worship leading. Like I worship leading isn't standing on a stage and singing. Worship leading is how I'm parenting my daughter. Worship leading is how I am with my spouse, which wasn't very good this interview with all my fact checking at the beginning. So
I love it.
I'm.
I want to ask this though. Do you have something you want to ask?
No.
With your, I would love your perspective. What being in watch parties, being in online gatherings that are watching the church online broadcasts like that we're doing, like everybody. Is any Hillsong church back open around the world? Or are they all different?
I think Denmark is. I think.
I know in Sweden they're doing like microservices. Yeah. They're like something like 60 services of 15 people or something, like something crazy like there. So our church around the world is very diverse and obviously from country to country, city to city, county to county, what's allowed, what isn't. So
I think
it's
Hillsong
a big
Phoenix
mix.
has done some in-person services.
Hillsong Phoenix are doing some
Kansas
social
City.
distance stuff. We in Hillsong, California have just started some outdoor
we did
services.
an outdoor socially distanced.
Like a worship service?
Yeah, in a park, like just
Amazing.
a short.
And then in a really hot car park in downtown LA.
Gotcha.
But our church is built for that. They're like, let's do it.
We're resilient.
Is there a date set for the return to gatherings yet or no?
I think, I don't want to speak for our senior pastor, but Pastor Brian, I think that he trusts leadership on the ground. So,
that's awesome. Okay. So my question was, I've noticed, as I'm sure you have, there's such a different dynamic when a smaller group of people is watching online. And I'm not saying worshiping isn't happening, but I've noticed even in myself, it's far less natural to sing out loud, even when you can. I'm not saying like in your moment where they're asking you not to sing or whatever, but like when you're in a gathering, it just seems like people don't generally sing along, though I'm sure worship is still taking place in the heart. What's your perspective on that? It's just kind of just an observation.
Well, it helps when if you can't sing and you're not hearing your own voice in a congregation. That's what's good about it, is that like I can sing as loud as I want and no one can hear me. They can hear Brooke. And I think that's a good thing for confidence. Because I get what you're saying. Like if there's people who are doing viewing parties and they've got 20 people over and they're like, I don't know if I've got a good enough voice to carry a tune. I don't want to really sing out loud.
It's just kind of an unspoken thing. People just kind of sit there and kind of watch more than sing.
Yeah.
But, so have you guys, we just kind of tweaked our worship set and made them shorter because it didn't work for as long. And we found view times, people were watching for like 13 minutes on an average. So it's like, okay, well, if they're going to watch 13 minutes, I'm going to compact our service to an hour and try and get them as much as we can in the short time that they're on. And that seemed to really help. Have you guys done something similar?
Yeah. In Hillsong, California, that's exactly what's happened. So the service is an hour, like tops. And it's like welcome, prayer and praise at the beginning, giving, all that stuff, a message. And then there's literally 2 songs at the end. And they've been using like one song done locally by the team from all in their different homes. So like a little grid of everyone doing as many churches are doing. And then usually followed up by a song from, a past album. So a United song or a worship song or something like that. And so then we as Hillsong Worship, something we just did in the past few months as well was take a bunch of our acoustic content and put it online for churches to use in their services. We know there are a lot of churches who have been, forced as with us all to go online, but don't necessarily have the setup to be able to, capture this or be able to have a team who are able to facilitate that. So we took a bunch of our worship and was like, please use this. Like if you would like to, it's here for you. And it's an acoustic format. So it doesn't feel like there's not that disparity of watching arena worship from your living room. It's kind of, so I think everyone's adapting, but it's, we all miss the gathering, obviously. And obviously as soon as we can gather again, that's going to be brilliant. But in the meantime, like what an amazing way to dig down into our roots. What a way to find out what our foundations really are. And whether we, had made somewhat of an idol of our events in a little way. And, let's let God do the work he wants and the surgery he wants to do on us so that when we can gather again, we come back with stronger foundations. And anyway.
Yeah, I don't think that church has forgotten the power of gathering. No. I just don't, because you know it. As soon as you're in the room, it's like what we say, we're having a great chat here, but if the 4 of us were sitting down at dinner, the dynamic is totally different.
Yeah.
That's
and
true.
I think the church, I'm saying with a capital C.
Yeah.
I don't think that believers have forgotten how powerful it is to gather.
And people are, things will never be the same and all the rest. It's so easy to overly dramatize what's happening in a moment. And I keep trying to keep the perspective of like, look, this is bad. Obviously it's gnarly, but it's been bad before. It's been worse before. You think about World War II, you think about the things people have gone through, and you know what? It moves along. And this is eventually going to be a blip in history books, and then we're going to have a new issue. So we shouldn't overly romanticize the past nor overly dramatize what's happening. Jesus is going to keep still building his church. That's what he does.
And I think I texted you a few months ago, Levi. I think there were, the last kind of very, very big gathering I was at before our women's conference in Sydney in Australia was Passion. And we were all at that together. You were preaching, Louis was preaching, Ravi Zacharias, like God bless him.
Yeah.
What an amazing legacy. But the words that you and Louis and Shelley spoke, I think, were so prophetic. Obviously, Louis's message was about turning the page. Yeah. Little did we know we were about to have the page turned us on in a major way. But then Levi, you did this message about the Dust Bowl, which I thought, you were one of the best communicators that I had ever heard, and sitting under your teaching is always delicious. Like I'm like eating at Nobu, like every. It's
a degustation.
It's the degustation. It is the tasting menu sitting under Levi Lusko teaching. But you set forth the history of basically, the Dust Bowl and that period of American history so incredibly. And then one of the things you talked about was how the solution to all those great big dust storms was, one of them was, who was the president at the time again? Was it FDR?
FDR.
Yeah. And the green belt.
Mm-hmm. The shelter belt.
The shelter belt. If you want to elaborate on that.
1 billion trees planted from Canada to Mexico, 100 miles wide to block the winds that were blowing across the Great Plains.
Yeah.
What a thing.
Gosh.
What a thing. And maybe that's what God's doing in the church right now.
Amen.
Maybe this is the green belt. Maybe this is God planting 1 billion trees in the church, And
you even think about when Paul writing to churches in the epistles, and he's communicating through these letters, but it's not like they were all jumping on Zoom and going, what's the church doing here? Like the church was being strengthened on a local level, and like they all could not see from a bird's eye view. So I'm an optimist when it comes to the church, because we're here 2,000 years later and it's not gone anywhere through dust bowls and through Great Depressions and through the church.
Pandemics. Yeah.
Whenever you hear
the truth goes marching on, Scott.
Yeah. So as soon as somebody, and obviously we all have those friends that are like, you know what, I've just, I've put 2 and 2 together and I've just like connected 2 disconnected dots, and I really think this stuff's going to change. And I'm like, we'll see. If you look at history, the church is resilient.
Yes.
We're resilient. As soon as somebody goes that I can have dinner with the Luskos again, I'm on a flight to Montana.
It's done. It's happening.
It's happening.
Okay, so we gotta let you get back to the other room. There's a worship album, and I'm going to selfishly send you back to the other room so I can get this worship album. Did you guys come out of quarantine with any new skills? Did you guys teach yourselves anything new and interesting?
I drew a lot, but I don't know. That started before quarantine. But then I pivoted. I drew a lot in quarantine, and then no, I can't think of anything. I'm just boring old Scott.
No, you're not.
You're not boring old Scott.
You've been working on some earth.
You know what I will say, and I really actually can't elaborate on it, but like when you give busy people time back, they don't sit there and go, I don't have no idea what to do with this. Like, so this year has been, like everybody else, there's been sacrifice and there's been not so great. But on the other hand, it's allowed us to start some things that, and they're both like, there's projects that I'm starting that are in spaces that I have no expertise in, and I'm learning, and that's been amazing.
Wow.
Well, that counts as a skill.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a skill, but my quarantine revelation was that I took Scott's Apple Watch that had been sitting in a drawer unused for a year, and I have become, in quarantine, I became addicted to closing my rings on the Apple Watch. And so I feel like I've gotten like strong again for the first time since Rooney was born.
And I'm sensitive when I say this. Brooke is that person that became incredibly fit during quarantine. And I am so sorry for all the people who are listening right now who are feeling bad about that, because I did not become incredibly fit. But Brooke has completely changed her health journey.
And
Girl,
what was the biggest? What was
that's
the biggest
amazing.
difference? Like the walking or what?
Well, I just started off by, I was like, I'm just going to go for a walk like 3 days a week. And so I just started walking, and then I was like, I might mix some other things in there. And then it kind of just escalated. And so I'm not crazy. I'm not like you guys. I cannot box like Jennie Lusko. That is for sure.
But you'd say you're the healthiest you've ever been.
Yeah. Well, the healthiest I've certainly been since I had kids. So I feel good. I feel strong. So that's not a skill, but I guess it's a discipline, a new habit, you might say.
No, well, that's a big deal because I feel like in quarantine, it was so easy to be more relaxed. And like, I know for me, I was not the most
But
fit.
you also broke your ankle. So that was challenging.
But that's amazing. I think that's a beautiful new habit, new discipline. I think that's.
What about you guys?
So we just kept going to the ER. Yeah. So she broke her ankle, and then I shot a firework into my eyeball. And so between those two incidents, we were just
But his vision's better now in that.
Yeah.
eye.
I went to the ophthalmologist yesterday, and my vision now in the left eye is better than it was before the firework.
Crazy.
Stop. Is that true?
Come on.
It's true. It's 1.5 points better than it was. So they had to lower my contact lens in that eye, which is, so I was joking. I was like, so I guess it's cheaper than LASIK, you know? But,
More traumatic than LASIK.
can't highly recommend it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we did a lot of that. I wrote another book in the pandemic. So
did.
that's coming out in 2022.
Ooh, guys.
Yeah, we're excited about it. I haven't really talked about that a lot, but I spent from my birthday on May 7th to July 1st every day but Saturday writing. So that was kind of a fun new thing.
You worked so hard. I'm so excited.
It's my favorite thing I've ever written. And suggestion, Scott. All the pictures that you wrote for all the versions, find a way on the Instagram to give us backstory. So like pick one day a week on the What a Beautiful Name Instagram and do hey, this was a photo. This was a thing. There could even be a whole YouTube video of like, this was a story arc we didn't pursue, because people will be interested in that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I might do that for sure.
And then they get to see the light of day.
Find it. We honestly had 4 different books that basically
So we didn't draw them. You drew
and that look completely different.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I'll try and do that. I'll dig that out of the archives.
All right, Scott and Brooke Ligertwood, you guys are amazing. We recommend every family out there get What a Beautiful Name. Read it to your kids, buy it for your friends, your loved ones. We will all be listening eagerly for any announcement about the new Hillsong Worship project.
Yes.
But in the meantime, thank you for your contribution to the body of Christ with a capital C.
Yes.
And I guess always body of Christ has a capital C.
Yeah. Well, and I just
Church with a capital C.
I just want to say thank you so much for your faithfulness and your spirit, which is always to glorify Jesus. And you guys are just inspiring in every way. And honestly, like Levi said earlier, when we think of you, there's always a huge smile on our face because we just love you both so much. And you are leading the way in the atmosphere of your spirit and your heart. You're leading the way in loving each other, loving your kids, loving your church, your local church. And you honestly, I want to be more like you when I grow up. But thank you for writing songs that are easy to sing. I mean, our kids, one of your songs will come on and they sing all the words, like you said earlier. Like they may not know all the meanings behind it, but they sing the words. And so thank you. Thank you for being so faithful to use what God's given you to bless our family and the whole world.
Right back at you.
Yeah.
Right back at you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll see you soon.